Hey guys, welcome to Hometown Hairdressers.
Hey.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
You guys, we're here with Julie Miller, one of the most beautiful humans, talented humans that I've had the pleasure of working with. And you know what I realized this morning, Julie?
What's that?
You and I have been working together for exactly half of the time I've been doing hair. I've been doing hair 18 years, and you've been with me 9 years of that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, Julie Miller, you guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Julie. She has been a new addition to my work family, but just welcome me like family. We love you dearly, and I'm so excited to dive into different things about different places we are in life behind the chair, and what that looks like every day. And I'm excited to get Julie's perspective as she has young children and she balances work and life and being a wife. And
I try to balance it.
But we all know that that's been like a huge struggle, and it's definitely been, at times places where you just don't feel like you're going to make it. And I think more than anything, what we hope to bring to this episode is just some understanding and transparency, is that we've all been there.
Definitely all been there. I think that one of the things that I would love to explore in this episode is we do have very different lives, but we all are here doing pretty much the same thing for pretty much the same reasons. You are married with 2 young children. Your husband is a firefighter, and that means days away from home while he's working. So to balance a full clientele, 2 young children, where on some days you're doing it all on your own, I'm just so curious what your guest experience looks like. I know what my guest experience looks like, but I don't have children. I do have a husband and I have a home life, but I have a little bit more room to work. I have a little more flexibility, but I'm just really curious, what does your work-life balance look like? What are the things that you hold very important with your guest experience, with your work overall, as to not let one overlap the other or affect the other? So tell me, what does that look like for you, balancing your work life and your home life?
Well, it's obviously going to overlap a little bit. And, we're in the business of being personable, and our clients know so much about our lives. And a lot of my clients have been with me since Trey was my boyfriend, before he was my husband. So they've kind of seen the whole thing happen and the whole thing go down. And my clients are super understanding on days where my kids are sick and I need to reschedule, or if they know I'm stressed out and they just listen to me talk. And it goes both ways. Like, we are our client's therapist, but in a lot of ways they're our therapists too, so I just, try to remember the little things about my clients when they come in, like if they've recently taken a trip, or if they've lost a pet, or if they've, something big happening in their life. Always try to remember those things and talk to them about them. My clients are so important to me. It almost feels weird calling them clients and not friends, because you feel like they're your friends. They're but yeah, I just, try to come in every day, and my number one priority is them feeling happy and beautiful and satisfied when they leave. And it's a relationship that you build over time, for sure. And
it is, and that's the difference, is when you're talking about remembering things that they've said or trips that they've taken, it's because you care. You actually genuinely care. It's not notes that you're writing down in your formula book.
Right, exactly.
It's a relationship that you build, and I can tell that that's important to you. You do have a good clientele. You have a really great work ethic. I see your work. I see the way you work with people. You're on time. You're all of those things. And I know so many other people who have children, who have another life, that is really difficult for them to do. But you managed to do it. So,
well, that would be be me, Julie, like the person who you make it look a lot easier than what I did. You know what I mean? And so, hats off to you. I think that's amazing. I think no, but really, I do. I see somebody who takes a lot of time and has a lot of structure and puts a lot of thought into preparing for things, so that way you don't get stressed out. And those are things and qualities that, I feel like, as just being around you and Ernie and things, that I've adapted and adopted and started to use. And when you're around good people, you start to take on their good and healthy habits. And I think that just goes to show me that, what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
So what are some of the things that you do, not only behind the chair, but with regards to booking and pre-booking and your flexibility and how limited that is, because when Trey's working and he's gone at the firehouse, is that what they call it? Firehouse?
Yeah, fire station.
Shout out Trey Miller.
Hey.
Fire station, yeah. So when he's gone for days at a time and you're left with 2 kids and working, there's got to be some key elements that are vital in your relationship with your clients and how you conduct your business that keeps that on track, that keeps the flexibility factor in check, as far as if they're not able to show up or you're not able to show up, how do you handle that? How do you handle your everyday interactions with them to keep it balanced?
That's a big question.
I would think it would, I mean, if it was like to
I
guess, I know, but I think you, like, it goes back to what she said earlier, like having that rapport with them and having that line of open communication.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
I mean.
So do you require your clients to pre-book?
I don't require it. I do suggest it. And I know the new wave of stylists is don't pre-book, don't tie yourself down.
I don't understand that.
I don't either. I would like to sit down with someone who works that way and kind of pick their brain and see what the benefits could be of that. Because for me personally, I mean, I have clients who already have appointments on the books through the rest of the year.
Right.
You know, they may have a trip coming up that they want to plan for, or I may have a trip coming up that I'm like, hey, I'm going to be gone this week. Do you need it? Yeah. So I've always kind of worked that way, and it doesn't make me feel tied down to my book. It makes me feel prepared, you know, because then I know, like, you know, I have set days that I work, and that for me, that was a big one too. I used to live right here in Fort Worth, 8 minutes from the salon. And if I had somebody that needed to reschedule, it's fine. I'll come in and do you on a day off and do one client. And now it's like, I mean, I will do that if I have to, just because I'm that person. But,
well, you're like 45 minutes.
It doesn't work anymore because I'm 45 minutes away, and you know I have kids in the equation now, so I do have to have set days. It's like, okay, this is when I'm here. This is my late day of the week. These are my Saturdays. You know, so going from a person who is a yes person in the beginning of my career, it's like I want to get you in whenever I can. I want to be available to you. To now being a person who is like, okay, these are my days, these are my hours.
That's a
kind
hard shift.
It's a very hard shift, and it definitely didn't happen overnight. And I feel like it's still kind of happening in some ways, to where I'm having to remind myself, like, it's okay to say no. And then, you know, your clients will surprise you, because sometimes I've been like, if it's, you know, people who can only come in the evenings or who can only come on Saturdays, and I'm like, hey, I can't work that day, or I can't do this or that. They're like, it's fine, I'll just take a half day at work. And you're like,
you don't want them to have to do
like,
that. But
yeah, but the fact that they would even be willing, like, you would never think
that
people would do that. But like, you do find that people will flex to your schedule.
Not to interrupt, but to totally interrupt. I think that you end up with the clients that are able to work with you in that regard. Their flexibility matches yours, and vice versa. But I think that it takes a lot of really difficult discussions, decisions to get to that point, especially when, like you said, starting out, you're building, you want to be available, you want to be there. You don't want to say no. You want to take everything that comes along. And then all of a sudden your priorities are different. You know, first it was your husband. That was a priority. And then your children. And those become priorities. So you almost whittle just talk right.
I just want you to get a little bit closer.
I can tell. So, what I was saying, I don't remember, but whittling it down
to the people who are
to the
meant for
people
you
who work
and,
with the way you work.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that you had to set boundaries with to get to that point? Like, I can't say no, or I can say no to, I can't get you in next week. There's a lot of things that you just cannot provide for them. So with your guest experience, from the moment that you greet them till the time that they leave, what are some key things that you think are important to keep that relationship, that all that being fluid?
I mean, when I come up front and grab my clients, I'm always, just try to be very welcoming, like, hey, how are you? And then just to not make the entire appointment about me and what's going on with me, even though sometimes
they want that though.
Yeah, I mean, they always
they
ask,
know all about
I know, like, I feel like there's sometimes we have clients that will pull it out of us almost, and it's like, that was their job for the day, was to come and make sure that we were okay. And I mean, there are those times, but
yeah, and just, So come and grab them and just, check in with them. How's everything going? And then always, even if it's somebody that I've been doing their hair for 10 years and they always get the exact same formula on a root touch up. Okay, are we doing the same thing as last time? Do you want to make any changes?
Right.
Just because you never know. Like if you don't ask, you don't know
right.
what
that
they
pre-mixing color thing. The
yeah.
people that mix up the color
It's
ahead
risky.
of time, it's super risky.
Yeah.
So you definitely still push a consultation every time.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's a quick one, even if is your haircut working out okay? Are we trimming up your bangs today or whatever? And sometimes it feels very repetitive because they're always like, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of clients are like, well, whatever you think, they want you to do whatever you think is best for them. But I always want to just give them the chance to, if they want to make a change, here's your opportunity to tell me, like, my color's a little too dark, a little too warm, I want to brighten it up, or whatever, whatever the case may be. And then I personally, as a stylist, don't double book appointments just because,
you do such big jobs, though. I don't know
sometimes
how you
I do.
could. Your processes are like 4 and 5 steps long.
Yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. And I feel like, I used to feel like when I was doing a color that was like, we're going to do highlights and then we're going to do a root shadow and a toner and all these different steps, like it would almost stress me out, like, oh my gosh, they've been here for 4 hours. Did they think I'm really slow, or did they think this is too much, or whatever? But now it's like, if you want the perfect outcome on your hair, this is what it takes. Gone are the days of coming in and getting highlights and you're here in and out in 2 hours.
I remember.
Oh my gosh,
it just doesn't exist anymore unless you're getting like
toner. We don't need toner.
Toner.
Mess up. That's the only reason.
Yeah,
exactly. Just lay that low light next to it.
It'll be fine. Just shampoo it a couple of times. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a different world from when I started doing hair for sure. And so I've had to adapt to that too, because I feel like all of us are kind of in that middle ground of stylists, to where we started in the beginning before like social media had such a huge influence, before people were bringing in inspiration photos from Instagram and Pinterest and all these things. And now it's a totally different world, So we've all had to kind of adapt to that and realize, like, you're not slow. It just takes time. And our clients, I think, realize that too. They're understanding of that. So that being said, I will double book if it's like friends or a mom and a daughter or sisters, if they know each other. But aside from that, I don't, just because it makes me feel rushed. It makes me feel like I'm under pressure. I don't like for my client to sit and wait, and watching me work. And like, not that they're like, oh my gosh, is she almost done?
Right.
But it's just too much pressure on me. So I personally don't like to work that way. Nothing wrong with people who do. But for me, that's one of the things that I don't like to do either.
So what do you think is one of the biggest struggles for you in that? I don't want to keep saying work-life balance, but in that, what's something that you find still difficult or that you find challenging, whether it be people who are wanting to reschedule and trying to get in, or texting you after hours while you're trying to be with your family? What do you think is the thing that is still difficult for you to master?
I think that is a huge one. I mean, I don't do online booking just because I feel like a lot of times people don't really know what they know what they want, but they don't know what it looks like on paper. Like, is it a highlight? Is it a balayage? Do I need a toner? Do I need a root shadow? All these things, and you leave it so open-ended, and they may just book an all-over color, and then you're like, well, that's not an all-over color. This is going to take me 4 hours, So for me, I don't do online booking. So when my the clients that don't pre-book their appointments, when they text me to make appointments, they pretty much know I'm not responding in 20 minutes. Like, it may be 24 hours, it may be 48 hours, but I will get back to you. So that's one thing that's hard. That's definitely still hard for me.
Yeah. So Shauna, you're at a different stage where your children are older. You are single mom, but your children are in different stages. And again, I think you're back to this place of more freedom, more flexibility than when your children are younger.
Right.
But I think those sorts of things still affect all of us in our trying to make sure that, one doesn't overlap the other.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
setting boundaries on times and when you get back to somebody. And
one of the things that I think I have the hardest time with is probably when I have either an illness come up with either myself or one of my kids, or we have like, snowmageddon or whatever. And I feel like I have all of these, because every important on my book is important to me. Like, there's not one that outstands the other. Like, I mean, those are the people who, pay my bills. Like, I mean, they all mean something. And so to know that I have somebody who's waited 6 weeks and has this huge event coming up and this, that, and the other, it's hard for me not to say, you know what, I'll just do it. And I mean, I'll tell y'all, I did a really dumb thing recently, but it was from the best place it could have been. And, you know, with the snow thing, I worked a 10-day stretch. And I mean, it was too much. And I didn't have a really good set of boundaries for myself, and I got overexhausted and almost got sick. And so, I mean, I struggle with these things still all the time, and finding that balance of, you know, being able to say no and not feel bad about it, because in all reality, it's just to protect yourself, so you still have that energy to keep giving. And I mean, I just know we got to keep. I mean, it's a daily focus for me. So.
Yeah, it is.
It is daily, but it's a moment to moment practice as well. And, you know, realizing sometimes when you've gone a little bit too far with something or let a person, I don't want to say take advantage, but you allow them to
push your boundaries.
And I think people do that without realizing that that's
correct.
What they're doing.
And we are letting them, so it's not their fault.
Yeah, their point of contact with you is, oh, I need to change my appointment. Let me text her really quick.
I'm sorry it's so late. And it usually is.
And usually that's how everyone is. And even if they don't mean it, and they may not expect a response right then, you know, but it can seem overwhelming whenever something does come up, a sickness or, you know, a change in the weather or whatever. And then for them, it's like they're one person with a hair appointment. For us, we've got a week's worth of people
that we're trying to reschedule.
Right. And so, like, when you break it down to the, like, 1 or 2 people that are texting, it's not that big of a deal. But collectively, when you've got that mass number of, you know, 10, 15, 20 appointments that you're like, where are they going?
And I'm so guilty of just, like, feeling overwhelmed when that happens, and just I'll look at my messages and I will look at my schedule and I don't know where to put people, and I'm like, I have to deal with that later.
Like, I shut down,
and then the next day come back with a fresh mind and be like, okay, let me start working on this. Let me tackle it, you know, and you piece people in here and there. And in those cases, I mean, I will, and I do double book, and I'll tell people that from the get-go, like, hey, I'm making up for one of my kids being sick last week. I'm going to have a color while your color's processing. I hope that's okay. Like, and I mean, I always try to make up for it. If there's going to be an overlap, like, hey, I'm going to do a conditioning treatment on you today and pop you into the dryer for 10 minutes while I finish her haircut and blow dry. Like, give them something out of it too. That way they're not just literally sitting with a towel on their head watching.
The thing is, that sort of booking has been done for so long. The thing is, keeping it running smoothly where nobody's left waiting for too long, or you're not taking up too much of their day because, you know, sometimes it was out of greed. Like, I want all the appointments I can get. I'm going to put them everywhere just to make it work. But we don't work that way.
No.
We are respectful, I think, as a whole of other people's time. And we want those things to run smoothly. But at the end of a day, at the end of a 10-day stretch, when you've done that, trying to make up for it, and you've pushed yourself hard, because it is difficult to double book, to overlap appointments, and to stay on time, and everything, it's like Thanksgiving dinner. Everything runs on a time, and you have to coordinate that. And sometimes, y'all see me, I'm literally running, you know, back and forth trying to make
we all
it
have
work.
those days, for sure.
And although everyone's like, go, Ernie, go, Julie, go, at the end of the day, it wipes you out.
Yeah,
and I don't have anything left to give at home.
Yeah.
And it's not my husband's fault that I have nothing left to give. It's not your kid's fault. You know what I mean? It's not your kid's fault, but sometimes they get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
And more often than not, and it sucks. And it's like, I think that's why it's so
important,
vital. It's like, it's truly to have a healthy, balanced lifestyle.
But figuring that out, like, we can say the words all day long, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, one of my examples of something I do with my client interactions to make sure that it doesn't overlap too much is those messages that come through after, we'll say 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock. Okay. There are times that I do work till 8. So those could be considered business hours. Beyond that, I'm at home. I've given you 10 to 12 hours today. I'm at home, so I won't respond. And a lot of my people have grown accustomed to that.
Right.
And another thing that I've asked all of my people to do is, if you text me about an appointment and I don't get back to you, understand that those messages get pushed down. I need you to check back in. I'm not going to get annoyed.
Right.
I'm thankful that you're checking back
I love
in.
when people
Stay
do
on
that
top
too.
of it, because I'm a terrible receptionist.
Yeah. It's a lot for one person to handle. And we've all been in situations where we had more of a front desk for our business, or we've had, different things to try to help that or whatever.
A barrier between.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And I think, whenever it's just up to you to be the person who's like, okay, I'm filtering my own calls, my own messages. And that's why, I don't really feel guilty about not responding right then and there, and I think that most of our clients understand that, you're not getting a response.
But you probably
right
did
moment.
at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's one of those things that I think is key. Like if you were to make a bullet point, is to realize that it's okay not to respond when you're not in, to set hours for yourself.
And even when it is business hours, to be honest with you, like when you're here in the
You're
salon all day, it's so hard. Like I will go all day and not even speak to my husband. I'll have missed calls and text messages. And probably in the beginning of our relationship, I wasn't as busy. It wasn't as big of a deal. But also he would be like,
the rooster drinking in between.
Yes. But, I was probably better about, being able to answer and text him back. But I'm just that person. If I'm with the client, I'm not answering my phone unless it's an absolute emergency.
Right.
I have worked with stylists who will be straight up foiling hair
with
phone
the thumb.
in their ear.
One of my biggest pet peeves.
Mine too. And to me, I just feel like I want to give, when that person's in my chair, I want to give them my undivided attention. I want them to know this is your time. And I'm not going to, and there have been times where I've been like, oh my gosh, this is my kid's pediatrician. Let me answer this really quick.
But for it not to be a normal thing that you do.
Hey Trey, what's up? Like, I'm not going to do that. So, and he knows that.
Are you guys at the store on the way home?
Exactly. This is a later on conversation. So.
Or when your kids call, hey mama, can I go? No,
I'm not there yet, thankfully.
But that's a good example. Something I didn't even think about is what is it that they are having to do and that they've grown accustomed to with referring to our children and our spouses of what adjustments do they have to make in order for us to do what we do the way we do.
Right.
Some people who don't mind taking a call while they're foiling, that boundary has not been set with their person.
Yeah, you're right. It's boundaries at home. It's boundaries at work.
So
it's boundaries with yourself.
It's a lot of boundaries that you have to put into play. But my husband does not call me while I'm at work.
Yeah.
He might text me, but if I don't text him back for 2 hours, I don't get
it's not a big deal.
For it. He understands, but that took time.
Same.
And he just knows that I'm not going to answer. And if my phone rings, there's an emergency. So yes, there are those times that you do that, but he knows because that's how I've set my boundary is when I'm at work, and these people are getting my time.
Right.
I'll see you after 7.
It's true.
McKenna and Carter know their heads will roll. Like, they used to call me pointlessly in elementary school and junior high. And
don't you remember doing that to your mom? I remember my mom being like, if you call me one more time,
I swear when I get
speaking
home.
through gritted teeth, if you call me one more time.
See,
right.
My dad had a beeper, so I could.
Oh my!
I'll just page.
Just buzz him. Yeah.
911.
But Trey has learned and adapted over the years. Like if I tell him, he's like, "What time are you gonna be done tonight?" If I'm like, "Oh, I'll probably be done around 6."
Ish.
He adds on an hour.
Absolutely.
He's like, "Okay, so you'll be done at 7. 45-minute drive home. We'll see about 7:45."
Yeah.
Like he knows. But yes, it was a learning curve for all of us in the beginning, and he doesn't even question it anymore. He just knows like if he calls me or texts me and he doesn't hear back all day, it's not even weird. It's not a big deal. But that being said, he also has a busy job.
For sure.
Like neither of us are just like sitting at a desk. Like not the people that sit at a desk don't have busy jobs, but I'm just saying, like it's we're both like busy out doing things, know. So it's not. Same goes for me and him. Like if he's at the station and I call him and he doesn't answer,
you're not freaking out.
Yeah, I know he's busy. I know he'll call me back when he can.
He's at work.
Yeah. So.
Well, okay, so one question I have for you, Julie, is what are some things that you do that helps you take care of yourself so you can continue to give to your family, your friends, your clients, your business? Like, what are some things you do?
She drinks.
Only occasionally.
But what helps you recharge?
Honestly, when I tell people where I live and they're like, oh my gosh, you drive so far to work. It is a far drive, but honestly, for me, that drive is a little bit therapeutic. At the end of the day, when I have been, so on all day and talking and carrying conversations and just standing and, that 45-minute drive home it's good. I can listen to music, listen to a podcast, or sit in silence or whatever. And it kind of recharges my batteries a little bit. If I now only lived 5 minutes from the salon and I got in my car and then went straight home to my kids and my family and had to turn it into mom mode, that would be a little bit harder, I think. So,
that's really cool though.
That's one of the
embracing
things.
that drive.
Yeah.
Plus it's so pretty up that way. Just the country.
Yeah,
it's
so different. Yeah, and some days, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like stress out because I'm like running late or whatever, but for the most part, that's something that I think is really good for me, having that drive home to kind of decompress and everything. And then, when I'm with my family, when I'm home, it's so different than being at work. We do live in the country. We do, and it is a lot being home with the kids, but all that being said, I do have my parents that are right up the street. So I have a lot of help. So it's not like it's just me and my kids all the time and it's so hard. I mean, it is like, we don't live with my parents, but I do have help. And, Trey's great. And whenever he's home, he's like taking care of business. Like if I was, a single mom and had to go home and do all of the things at home and then do all of this, I think that would be a lot harder. But, I don't know. I think you kind of just adapt to it all. You starting off this, I had a boyfriend and no husband and no kids. And then over time, my business has gotten busier, but also my home life has gotten busier, and it's all kind of happened simultaneously. So it's just something that, you just have to sit back and be like, okay, what's really important, and carving out those days to be at home and only be at home. And then, when I'm at work, I'm fully at work. And when I'm at home, I'm fully at home with the exception of, scheduling appointments, making, texting clients back and stuff like that. But it kind of just separates itself, I feel like, because I am so far removed from the salon when I'm home. I don't have the option to just run up there and do a client and come back, so I think that helps.
That's good.
Now, do you find that your husband Trey as well is kind of depleted after his job? I can't imagine what they must do, but a household where two people need to recharge and are depleted, sometimes you can do some of the same things that help you don't need a lot from each other. I get home, my poor husband's stuck in a truck all day, sometimes barely even speaks.
Right.
And it's the same people all the time. So his stimulation factor is very low.
Yeah.
When he gets home or on the weekends, he needs excitement. He wants all of those things. So, and I don't. I'm depleted. Right. I've had my excitement. So with you having the job that you have and Trey having the job that he has, do you find that y'all are both kind of needing the same thing out of your time off and time together?
We do love just to be at home, honestly. And he, depending on that, some nights they get to sleep all night. Some nights they run 5, 6, 7 calls after midnight. And he's like, I think I slept 3 hours last night, not even, all at the same time. So it kind of just depends on the night for him. Sometimes he's gone for only 24 hours. Sometimes he's gone for 48 hours. The thing about Trey though is like, he's a busybody. So when he's home, he's like, not really the person that's like, let me come home and sleep for 4 hours. He's like, okay, let me clean out the garage. And this is driving me crazy.
Oh, nice.
He's that person, which is great. But we both, occasionally, like probably about once a month, on Monday's always my day off. So whenever his day off happens to fall on a Monday, like the baby goes to daycare, our oldest one goes to school, and we just have the day together. We will go, even if it's just like, okay, we need to go to the grocery store, we need to do this and that, but like we're together, we don't have our children, we will go to lunch, we might have a drink at lunch, we might even just spend the day at home doing whatever needs to be done around the house. And I know that might sound crazy, just spend the day together and not even do anything.
I think those are like treasures that kind of keep your relationship ignited, especially whenever you have kids and then you have a business that you have to pour into so much emotionally. I think having those days is probably what keeps y'all strong and connected. And I think that's really, really awesome.
Yeah, we love having those days together where it's just us. And it's almost kind of weird because you get out of the car and you just go into a store. You don't have to like get children out. And
right.
You did all the wild stuff and bar hopping and all that when you were younger.
That is true. We lived our lives.
That's what this part of life is about, and why 40s look so nice for me is, our thing is Sonic and Ross. We go like look at cheap stores for stuff and just go into Sonic. It's just something we do together, and it doesn't have to be wild and exciting, and it works. But we're getting older. So
speak for yourself.
You're way older than me. I don't know what you're
a whole 6 months. Calm down.
A lot.
Calm down. It might be 5 in like a week.
Well, some of us are still in our 30s.
Yes,
very
you are.
And
You'll be here soon enough.
Fantastic job.
You are.
Julie, I think that today has been kind of like a cool reflection to look back on. all I can say is from being where I am now, like behind the chair, treasure the time with your kids. That was one thing I don't think that I factored in a lot, and not that I didn't factor it in. I tried to balance, and I didn't do a great job of balancing.
It's hard when you're in the thick of it to
It
realize
really
that like
is.
time is fleeting, and people tell you all day, every day that it goes by so fast.
Right,
Yeah.
and work will always be there, but man, my kids are going and they're
Yeah.
leaving, and it's cool, and
you
it's
get a little emotional.
yeah, but it's just such a different phase, and just all I can say is if anybody's listening, slow down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that goes. Oh, Julie get emotional too.
Because those kids will be gone one day, and it's so important.
No, that's really good advice, I think, for anybody listening, whether you have kids or not. The people in your life, slow down, enjoy them. You know,
Yeah.
there's definitely regret that you feel at some point, and better to be relieved that you spent all the time you could than
Right.
regret for not doing it. So good message to everybody out there, whether it's your dog or your
Anybody
significant
that's
other
important to
or
you.
your old neighbor that lives beside you, and whatever it is, just do more and spend as much time as you can, and make those things a priority now. For
Yes.
those of y'all that are still in your 20s,
You
maybe
young mamas and daddies out there, all of y'all,
Yeah.
just make time for the
Slow
important
down.
things.
because those are the things that you're going to be left with at the end of it all, and not how much money you make or anything like that. It's going to be the time that you spent or missed with people. So, well, on that emotional note, I
So
feel
sorry.
Like,
I tried to hold that in, and I just could not.
I saw it coming.
Yeah, you're my friends. So to our fellow hometown hairdresser, Julie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I know you've got a million other things that you could be doing today, but you let a little bit of your work-life balance shift for us, and we really appreciate it. But we love you, and hopefully have you on for another episode. But Shauna, do you think we've said enough?
I think we have never said enough,
Probably
but
not.
you know what? For today we have.
Let's just leave it here. Y'all take care of each other and yourselves.
Thank you. Bye.